Turtenwald 8-0 on your left-hand side. Former Player of the Year, back-to-back Grand Prix champion, including this standard format. On your right, you have Raymond Perez, who is relatively new into Magic, but actually just came off a ninth place finish at Pro Tour Theros. We've had him on camera earlier today, and he's playing Mono Blue Devotion.
Yeah, absolutely. He's just burst onto the competitive scene. He's been a long-time PTQ grinder. He's part of the Brainstorm Brewery crew. He's been a voice on Twitter, in Magic Twitter, for a long time, and so it's good to see him picking up steam. Even on the Open Series coming into this year, I think he's around 65th on the leaderboard, so he still has a really good shot to make the end of the year Players Championship as well.
So both players just leading off with the basic lands we associate with these decks.
Yeah, that's a better start for Mono Black than it is for Mono Blue. Because the Mono Black deck is going to take the control role in this matchup.
Absolutely.
I think Mono Blue is much better in the Mono Black Devotion matchup when they have a Cloudfin Raptor in play, or even a Judge's Familiar, but especially with Cloudfin Raptor, to be able to soak up Devour Fleshes and to be able to get in early damage.
Yep. You see Owen misses third land drop last turn, but he makes his land drop this turn, as Raymond was able to add a Judge's Familiar and a Frostburn Weird to his board. And we'll see what Raymond has to follow up with this turn.
Yeah, Mono Blue Devotion it looks really weird, right? Like you don't expect people to be seriously consider playing Judge's Familiars and Frostburn Weirds, but they're backed up by two of the most powerful spells that you could be playing, which are Master of Waves and Jace, Architect of Thought, as well as Thassa. And once Thassa gets going, it's really tough to stop her.
So Raymond decides to protect his Frostborn Weird from a Hero's Downfall with his Judge's Familiar, adds Thassa to his board. Owen finds a fourth land and adds Desecration Demon. Raymond mulling over his draw step right now with Thassa's Scry ability.
Desecration Demon's a really tough card for the Mono Blue deck to deal with effectively. Just being so huge and being able to fly as well, stand in front of Night Veil Specters and the like, it's pretty difficult. The best answers that Mono Blue has are, of course, Rapid Hybridization and Cyclonic Rift, but that really only delays the inevitable. Mono Blue doesn't have a great answer if Mono Black's already at 18, or still at 18, and already has a Desecration Demon on the board. So he's going to try and dig for an answer here, sacrificing his Mutavault to tap down the Desecration Demon and swing in for 6.
Able to get full loyalty for Thassa and uses Mutavault to tap down the Demon. Came across with Thassa and Frostburn Weird.
Looks like Owen has a pair of Hero's Downfalls in hand. Sorry, just one Hero's Downfall, 2 Night Veil Specters in hand.
And it's very challenging to keep the Mono Blue deck off of Devotion at this stage, because with Biden and Thassa in play, any 2-mana creature turns it on.
Owen's mulling his decision here because he can't effectively play either of his Night Veil Specters, really. But he is going to get aggressive, so he's going to attack for 9 here, because he was just going to get tapped the next turn most likely anyway by something that Raymond played from his hand. And he is going to add that Night Veil Specter, so he's going to start racing the Mono Blue deck. What do you think about that?
His draw is what it is. He's not in a position to... He certainly can't win any sort of attrition game now that Biden and Thassa are online, so he might be able to win a short game by racing with Desecration Demon.
Yeah, I think that that's a reasonable choice here. I mean, he's not going to be able to block with it, and if you're not blocking,
might as well be attacking.
Yeah. Raymond looks like he has a Mutavault and a Night Veil Specter of his own, so he's going to be able to at least stem the tide of the damage. But I don't know if he's going to be able to completely turn the corner on the race. Although Raymond does have a theoretical 9 power, and Owen is only at 12. He does have an untapped Night Veil Specter here to be able to trade off the Frostburn Weird or chump the Thassa if he really wants to, and he still has that enormous flyer in the air.
He's got to try to make Raymond squeeze between adding to his board and using mana to make creatures unblockable with Thassa.
So he does play out the Mutavault. As you see Joe Bernal in the background, as we just referred to at one of the background feature match tables, the Xenagos table. We have new boards for this year, 2014, and he is at one of those new boards over there. As we see Raymond is going to pump his Frostborn Weird to trade with the Night Veil Specter. And Owen falls to 7.
critically 2 chump blockers for the Desecration Demon.
That's right. Also back up to the loyalty for Thassa, should he somehow not sacrifice a Judge's Familiar here, which I don't think is particularly likely.
Owen announces attack. Raymond says bring it. Just chumps block with the Judge's Familiar.
And Owen still has 3 3-drops in his hand. Looks like still a pair of Nightveil Specters and a Hero's Downfall. So he actually has had 3 total Nightveil Specters. And he's going to leave up the Hero's Downfall to be able to hopefully take out Raymond's Devotion in combat.
Keeps that one. Looks like it might have been Rapid Hybridization.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. That's definitely going to gain him a lot of life in this matchup, because not only is it going to take down the 7/7 flyer, but it's also going to put a 3/3 Frog Lizard into play on Owen's side of the board. It doesn't match up very well against Thassa.
So we're going to see a main phase Rapid Hybridization. Usually what this signals is a follow-up Tidebinder Mage to lock down the green frog.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a nice interaction that even when you're playing against mono not green cards, you can still lock something down with your 2/2s instead of having them be just vanilla.
Curse of the Swine, I've had that happen to me as well.
Ah, that's a good one. Yeah, mono blue not really running Curse of the Swine all that much, although I wouldn't be too surprised to see more of that, because that's a great answer to Gods as well.
Yeah, we have a lot of sideboards have a singleton. As you see, Thassa is made unblockable here. Owen can't really break up the Devotion here with his Hero's Downfall, because the Judge's Familiar can sack to protect the Tidebinder Mage from a downfall here.
Yeah, Owen looked like he was in an okay position to race, but Mono Blue Devotion has a ton of answers, so not really going to be able to do that. Still the requisite 5 Devotion. And the drawn card from the Bident of Thassa.
And the card drawing spells and Thassa, which gives you a lot of quality over time, are the places where it feels like the blue deck has an edge in the matchup. It's really hard to just trade removal spells for creatures when someone's drawing additional cards each turn, or really improving their draw selection over time.
Yeah, this matchup doesn't really hinge on Underworld Connections or Bident the way that the mono blue deck hinges on Bident in other matchups, or the mono black Devotion hinges on Underworld Connections in other matchups. But certainly card advantage is extremely helpful when you can afford it. Owen can't really afford his, because all of his costs life right now. Whereas Raymond was able to take care of Owen's Air Force, and looks like he's going to be in okay shape to win this round, or this game. And Thassa gets in there, unblockable, and puts Owen to -3. So Raymond is going to go up a game here as we head to the sideboards between 2 of the 3 undefeated players left in this tournament.
Yeah, Raymond's side, you know, we've had him on camera before. I believe playing against Mono Black Devotion, if memory serves. He doesn't have any real haymakers for the matchup, because none really exist. But he does get to bring an extra copy of Bident, an extra Rapid Hybridization, and an extra Cyclonic Rift. Bident is really important. As we saw in that game, it really prevents the mono black deck from winning by just trading 1-for-1 removals for creatures. And then Cyclonic Rift and Rapid Hybridization are more protection against Desecration Demon, and especially Pack Rat. When I've seen the blue deck lose on camera to the black deck, it often involves an early unchecked Pack Rat.
Yeah.
Blue deck's a little soft to that, so additional answers to that is helpful as well.
Yeah, absolutely. He also has the one Curse of the Swine that you were referencing. I'm not sure it comes in here. He's not too afraid of things like Erebos, which, by the way, Owen has 3 of in his sideboard. That number sort of shifts from week to week, depending on how popular Sphinx's Revelations are. He even had one in his main deck in one of his GP winning decks, I think, if memory serves correctly. Owen Turtenwald playing Mono Black Devotion. That shouldn't be too much of a surprise. He does have 2 main deck Farika's Cures this week, which I find somewhat interesting. Must be expecting more Ash Zealots this week. Well,
I think it's good against beatdown decks. It's also a removal spell that Black has access to that kills Pack Rat game 1.
Yep.
And you're always looking for more of that. It kills enough creatures out of the Mono Blue Devotion deck, and you know, like I said, if you run into Mono Red or Boros, it's a really big shifter to have access to that card game 1.
He has 2 of those in the main deck and 2 of those in the sideboard, so he's going to be able to bring in all of those for this matchup. However, he doesn't have a ton else. He has Duress which I suppose is good. It's going to be able to not only give him information, but also take out Rapid Hybridization and Bident and Jace, maybe a random Cyclonic Rift, things like that. But I'm not sure that's really where he wants to be in this matchup. Dark Betrayal could take down Nightveil Specters. Is that a reasonable thing to bring in?
A little narrow, too narrow.
Yeah, I think it's a little narrow. Erebos, God of the Dead, just as additional Underworld connections, also doesn't seem all that great, although being an unkillable creature, if you're able to get the devotion off of non-creature based stuff like Underworld connections.
I think Owen in this matchup has to take his life total is the one that's going to be taxed, not Raymond's. So I think Erebos is kind of out of place in those kind of matchups.
And Lifebane Zombie equally out of place. So
actually, I know Owen has actually said a few times that he's a pretty big advocate for bringing in Lifebane Zombie against
Mono Blue, just for the 3/1 Intimidate for 3.
The information matters a lot because they have a couple, they have a few, not many, but a few answers to creatures, like especially Desecration Demon, so that information is valuable. He also feels like he wants to race a lot in the matchup.
That's fair.
And Lifebane Zombie is pretty hard to block, so even though the text box is irrelevant, he feels like it does enough to warrant including in the post-board games.
Fair enough, yeah. 3/1 Intimidate for 3, good enough. Also helps with getting up Devotion for the Grey Merchant Fireball at the end of the game. So those might be coming in as well alongside the Freakus Cure. Somewhere between 2 and 5 cards coming in. What cards are unimportant in the mono-black matchup?
I think that...
Or for mono-black in the mono-blue matchup.
Because your life total is under some amount of duress, and the mono-blue deck is fairly redundant in the ways that angles of attack. It's possible Thoughtseize is not very good here. And other than that, I mean, the rest of the deck looks pretty lean. The removal spells are clearly good. Maybe you don't want all 4 copies of Underworld Connections, that sort of thing. But
sure. And over in Mono Blue, I think that for the most part, it's going to stay very similar. We might be cutting some number of Tidebinder Mages. Although, as we saw in the last game, don't need to tap down the black creatures if you can turn them into frog lizards.
And you just need so many creatures to slog through all the removals and to make Biden more reliable. It's possible Jace is not very good in the matchup. There's Hero's Downfall. He's not really attacking you, so the plus power doesn't matter very much.
And turn 1 Cloudfin Raptor, as I said, was so important, is actually going to be taken care of immediately by a Devour Flesh. It's followed up by this Frostburn Weird.
Yep. The Edicts you have to cash in kind of as soon as you reasonably can, as we see Owen play the Lifebane Zombie.
So he does bring in the Lifebane Zombie. I think that is a very good argument, as it shows 2 Nightveil Specters, another Cloudfin Raptor, and Thassa.
Pretty loaded hand here for Raymond, but we saw Thassa really take over that game last game, in part because Owen had no pressure. So all the scrying and the improvement of the card selection really mattered over time. If Owen can shorten the length of the game a little bit, maybe he can alleviate some of the power of Thassa.
As we see Thassa come down with Nightveil Specters in hand, so that's going to be able to start attacking next turn if Owen doesn't have a clean answer. He does have Farika's Cure. That is not going to be able to take out the 4 toughness Frostburn Weird or any future 3 toughness Nightveil Specters, however.
Yeah. Without a removal spell here, Owen is really under the gun.
It looks like he just has another Lifebane Zombie. Showing off the Bident that he just received is Raymond Perez.
But Owen does have a Mute Vault in play, another Mute Vault in hand, so if he has a good draw step, another removal spell, perhaps a Desecration Demon, he might be able to just race this, as good as Raymond's start here is.
Right. Mutavault not able to block Lifebane Zombies because it itself is not an artifact, it's just colorless. As Raymond comes in for 6 and is going to draw 2 cards off that Bident. Such a powerful effect when the Mono Black Devotion doesn't have the creatures that it needs to have in play by turn 4. You can really get swamped by the card advantage of the Bident.
Yeah, and it puts so much pressure on the other deck to end the game quickly because every draw step that the mono blue deck has once Bident's in play is potentially any creature allows them to avalanche.
Yeah, and Owen was going to try and race this game, but he's only attacking for 6, and so is Raymond at this point. As we see Pack Rat come into play on turn 5, which is, I think, the second most popular turn for Pack Rat to come down.
Yeah.
Leaving up the 3 mana to be able to turn any excess cards in his hand into more rats.
Yeah. I mean, Owen's definitely committed to his plan here. Certainly now with Biden and Thassa in play, he can't win the game if it goes on for a long time, but perhaps with his Intimidate creatures, he can win a shorter game.
Raymond is going to make sure that he has the devotion that he needs so that he doesn't get blown out mid-combat by an elimination spell on Frostburn Weird, so that Thassa doesn't become active and just is a tapped enchantment. Playing everything pre-combat is a relatively new thing, but of course with evolved creatures and devotion and all that kind of stuff, you're going to want to put it all out there. In comes Thassa by itself.
And again, as bad as this game looks for Owen, if he can find a way to kill that Night Veil Spectre, the Night Veil Spectre can block the can block one of the zombies next turn. Owen actually has got a pretty good, I mean, he's got a 2-turn clock going right now.
As we see 2 2/2 pack rats, and he's also got 1 Mutavault to be able to, 2 Mutavaults to be able to pump those pack rats, should he be able to find an answer for that Night Veil Spectre this turn. He still has a 2-turn clock even without the Night Veil Spectre blocking. The problem is that so does Raymond.
Yes.
Raymond's clock is much quicker. So what do you think is going through Owen's head now? Is he trying to turn this Pharika's Cure into what's he trying to do to end this game in his favor?
How do I apply enough pressure this turn to force chump blocks or something unfavorable from Raymond while surviving on the way back, because Owen's life total is also low?
Yeah.
That's the puzzle.
So oftentimes in situations like this, if I can't figure out exactly what to do, I will swing with all of my creatures, especially when I have low toughness, high power creatures like Lifebane Zombie.
Not a terrible instinct to have.
Says the red mage, of course. But I think that it's you sort of second guess yourself a lot, and if you just make them have it, it really helps a lot.
Yep.
Owen is going to, looks like, only be swinging with 1 of the Mutavaults instead of none of the Mutavaults. So we're just going to come in with all 4 creatures that are always creatures.
And this allows him to make a rat and turn both of his Mutavaults on. So if Raymond is sloppy about his blocks here, he can just get killed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, and Raymond going to try his best to not be sloppy, doing a little bit of math on his paper, figuring out exactly what he needs to do. The Mutavaults can activate themselves with their own mana, leaving Owen with 3 mana still to discard the 1 remaining card in his hand. Those pack rats are currently 2/2s. They can become 5/5s before damage is dealt.
And also remember that Owen still has the Cure in his hand too, so if Raymond blocks trying to play around what's on board, it's possible his blocks are worse against actually Cure in hand.
Yeah.
So we shall see. I mean, if Owen can force enough blocks and kill enough of Raymond's stuff where Raymond doesn't kill him on the way back, Owen has a real shot of winning this game, because next turn he's going to have an avalanche of damage. So that's the real puzzle here for Raymond. Ideally, he would like to leave enough in play where he can just kill Owen on the way back, but that just might not be possible.
Right. I think that, so right now we're trading Night Veil Spectre for Lifebane Zombie, and we are pretty much throwing a Cloudfin Raptor under the tires, leaving Frostburn Weird, Thassa, and Bident of Thassa on Raymond's side of the board.
He's trying to represent a kill next turn, because Thassa plus...
So we are only going to make 1 rat mid-combat. That's going to deal 6 damage to Raymond, putting Raymond 2/6. Zombie and Spectre trade. Cloudfin Raptor hits the bin.
And Owen's still with Cure in hand here, so...
Right, he still has the Cure in case Raymond tries to go for the kill here with the Frostburn Weird.
And this has been, we've seen Owen on camera a couple times today. He's done a really good job of assessing what role he needs to take in the matchup, whether he's the aggressor or the defender, and executing the gameplay properly. This game looked really bleak on camera, but Owen has found a way to, in part because of these Lifebane Zombies that, aren't intuitive to be sideboarding in, certainly.
Raymond was pondering his scry there, decided to put it on the bottom, ended up drawing. He had 3 islands in hand already. I don't believe he drew another one. The last remaining card, I believe, was Nightveil Spectre.
So we know from our vantage point that Raymond can't win the game by simply alpha striking and pumping his Frostburn weird. And his hand looks fairly land heavy. Besides, it looks like he's flooded out a little bit.
Yeah,
here.
he's drawn a bunch of cards off of the Bident, but many of those were lands, and he's not able to play all of them, of course. So he's going to drop that Nightveil Spectre to make sure that Thassa doesn't have problems getting in there in the red zone. And it is not an unblockable Thassa.
Yep.
Using that last 3 mana to be able to play another spell next turn. The tempo of this game slowed way down. I was expecting this game to end either this turn or on Owen's last turn, and it's taken another full turn, maybe turn and a half, to end this game as both players are playing very cautiously, playing around pretty much everything to be able to survive as well as win.
Yeah, both players are trying to apply enough to threaten lethal while leaving enough back to not die on the way back.
Owen top decks Hero's Downfall, so he does have 2. Oh, he can only cast 1 of the kill spells, so he's going to have to discard 1 of them.
Well, let me see here. He's got 3 blockers back versus 1, 2, 3, 4. Enemy Mutavault is the 5th attacker. So Owen does not have lethal on board, even if he casts the removal spell. If one of those creatures could be killed by a cure, that would be a different thing, but
and we've just gotten word that Brian Brown-Duin has won his match, so it is likely that he is going to be in the top 8 rounds tomorrow morning. Again, this is an 11-round tournament, and so we're going to have the whole top 8 in the morning.
Mm-hmm. And now Owen's in, he is in kill or bust. He's basically dead on board to Thassa next turn, and so he's going to have to, even if he doesn't have the kill on board, he's going to have to try to put Raymond into a spot where he can potentially mess up.
So we're going to animate 1 Mutavault that grows all of the pack rats, including Mutavault itself. Does it not?
No, pack rat itself is power and toughness equal to rats.
Number of rats, but it does not pump
crusade.
the other rats.
It's not crusade for rats. It's
sure. It's merely insane and not unbelievable.
Yeah.
So in come the Pentad of creatures. Before blocks, taking out
down to 2 blockers
Spectre.
now. So when we have, if there is no rapid hybridization, Owen's going to get out of this game.
Yeah.
Counts it up and gets it done.
So yeah, very tight play on both sides, but Owen is able to pull that one out thanks to some deft pack ratting. And we are tied up at 1, going to game 3.
And I'm pretty sure, Raymond has this feeling of how did that one get away from me, because his hand was so good. Owen never played any of the marquee power cards in the matchup, you know what I mean? He was just hitting with Lightbane zombies and trying to fend off a little bit of Raymond's pressure with removal periodically, but a really impressive win there from Owen in game 2. So do you think we move any cards around on versus play versus draw here?
Probably not. I wouldn't think that we would want any of the cards that weren't already in the deck unless we weren't running, for example, we could bring in the 1 Essence Scatter on Raymond's side of the board. Gets marginally better later, or if you're on the play. But I don't think anything changes too much. What I do think changes is that Mono Blue Devotion is significantly better on the play. It's much more important for Mono Blue Devotion to be on the play.
Right, no, for sure. I mean, it's the way that you capitalize on Mono Black in my mind is the Mono Black deck goes turn 1, Thoughtseize or nothing, and turn 2 plays a 1/1 pack rat or plays a kill spell some percentage of the time. And if you can capitalize on the deck not being that powerful on turns 1 and 2, then you have a real shot at beating it.
Right.
If you're trying to play tick for tat with it with 3 and 4 mana spells, I think the Black Devotion deck is by far the best deck in the format. But if you can capitalize on the first 2 turns, I think you have a real shot, and that's obviously much easier to be doing when you're on the play versus on the draw.
If these players had the same hands, but Raymond were on the play, game 2, and he was able to play the Cloudfin Raptor and not get immediately Devour Flesh, the game is completely different.
It's a way different game, yep.
And so Raymond's going to be looking for a pretty aggressive start, I would think. I think that having a 1-drop is very important for Raymond's deck in this matchup.
Yeah, having a 1-drop is really important. I think early Thassa is really important, as it's good if Owen's trying to play a grindy game with removal. But just by scrying. It can also be good if the game is being played on the board, because giving it a 5/5 indestructible, unblockable creatures, quite good there as well.
One thing I noticed about both of these decks is early in the format, these decks probably had 23, maybe 24 lands. Raymond has 25. Owen has 26.
Yep.
Both of these players are making sure they're in the Kai Buddha school of Magic, which is I'm playing as many lands as possible so that I can cast my spells.
Yeah, and the Black Devotion deck, I think, is especially critical, because if this deck misses its 3rd land drop, it can't do anything.
Yep.
And the Blue Devotion deck is also trying to curve out 1, 2, 3, 4, and both decks with Underworld connections and with Biden have some card drawing to find additional threats. But these decks are quite anemic when they're missing their land drops.
Absolutely. Both these decks want to basically hit their first 6 land drops.
Right.
They want to hit their very important enchantment for their card draw purposes and just keep hitting their land drops for the rest of the game until they can finally go over the top.
Yeah, the games where these decks are making their land drops and drawing cards are generally very easy for them. But when they're missing land drops, it's a mess.
So let's say each player goes perfectly. Which deck is favored if both decks have their ideal opening hands?
The Blue Devotion deck, it's more efficient. And you see Raymond taking a mulligan here?
Yeah, he's not going to have that draw that we were just talking about, as he is going to have to mulligan to 6. Owen looks content with his 7, so he's going to wait it out here. Owen, the 11th ranked player in the Players' Championship season for the first quarter of the year. 16 players qualify. The points leader at the end of the season is going to earn one of those qualification spots. I know that some people out there were a little confused as to how the invitations were given out, but the leaderboard that you see on our Players' Championship page is going to show you the season points leader at the end of the season. Owen's still in really good position to be able to make lots of headway to pick up a spot.
And keep in mind that 8 of those slots are going to be given out at the end of the year.
Right.
So if you didn't play a lot last season and you feel like behind the curve because you see these people with all these points so happen in the standings, keep in mind that 8 of these slots this year are going to be given out just by this year's results.
Right.
So
the only slot that's really taken up by a lot of last year's results is this first quarter champion.
Right.
Once you get into June, you've got a whole 6 months worth of events, and then 9 months, and then a year,
right.
And then you've got the remaining 8. So there's still plenty of time for those of you watching at home if you want to try and get into that awesome $50,000 Players' Championship at the end of the year. As we see turn 1 Thoughtseize from Owen against a mulligan, super good.
Yeah, and there's a hand with one really good card and not much else. So Thoughtseize is especially brutal here.
Yeah, Mono Blue Devotion oftentimes is described by its detractors as Master of Waves, either one of the 4 mana card draw spells, and then 52 cards no one really wants to be playing.
Right.
And Thoughtseize exacerbates that problem, of course.
See a Cloudfin Raptor.
Yeah, Devour Flesh took out the Frostburn Weird, and now Raymond has nothing but a Cloudfin Raptor and an unanimated Mutavault to his name on his side of the board. That's going to help a little bit.
Yeah, I mean this is a pretty big check for Owen. If he has a removal spell for this master, he gets way ahead in this game, and otherwise it's actually a bit of a slog.
He has the 4th land, and it looks like he has a bunch of Desecration Demons. So it is going to be a bit of a slog, it seems. Desecration Demon does not match up particularly well against Master of Waves, although this one's just a baby master.
Yeah, this is not so bad.
Just a couple ripples. A couple of Horsies, as we see Thassa.
Wow. Really?
He's going to be unblockable Master of Waves with his 5 mana.
Some really, really good draw steps from Raymond here. Finding a master, then another Thassa.
Yeah, one of the problems with Thoughtseize is you can't Thoughtseize the top of your opponent's deck, unfortunately.
They still draw cards.
Yep. Looks like Owen has found a Hero's Downfall.
I believe that's a Grey Merchant.
It is a Grey Merchant.
If he had a Hero's Downfall, he probably would have just killed the master.
Right. And so we're just going to add another Desecration Demon to the board. Double Demon is going to overload the master pretty quickly. because all of Raymond's permanents have one blue mana symbol.
Yeah.
Even if he played another master, it would only make 4 tokens.
So let's see if Raymond can potentially get his devotion count high enough to be able to start attacking with Thassa. Otherwise, these Desecration Demons are going to overwhelm Raymond's defenses.
And that isn't the face of a man who's super excited about the position that he's in. The body language, leaning forward and sort of shaking the head a little bit. That's a pretty good draw for someone who had that level of body language. Yeah. Domestication on Owen's Night Veil Spectre.
Yeah, that was the best draw on the deck, so I guess our read of
I had a bad read there. I would have lost all my money on that pot.
You see a big hit for 9 here.
Yep.
And Devotion obviously now on as domesticating a Night Veil Spectre is 5 by itself.
Owen finds Temple of Deceit on top of his deck, which is not going to help him cast that Grey Merchant just yet. He still needs to find a way to not die.
Owen announcing his attacks here.
Raymond correctly chooses to not sacrifice anything this turn, as he can do so next turn.
Well, I think he's mulling it over. I think sacking here is probably not good. I think Raymond senses that that's the case.
Owen is going to get in with one of his Desecration Demons for 7. Looks like we have Grey Merchant, Lifebane Zombie, and Pack Rat.
So now there is still the possibility Raymond still needs to play around Devour Flesh. Owen targeting himself with it, so it's not as simple as just attack with my stuff, but Raymond does have him beat if he just makes his creatures unblockable and sends them in.
Yeah, he definitely played this turn like he has Devour Flesh. He also kept up the 2 black mana instead of keeping up the Mutavault, so he could even theoretically have Farika's Cure, just making Raymond. Raymond has already proven that he's going to play very, very cautiously. Mm-hmm. He's trying to make Raymond play too cautiously for this game because he has shown that that is what he'd like to do. So he rapidly hybridizes his own Thassa. It's indestructible, but it does get him a Frog Lizard token to be able to sacrifice to the remaining Desecration Demon. Raymond decides, you know what? I'm all in. Makes the correct call that time. Made the correct call in the game before also, I think, although didn't turn out his way.